today being March 1st, the February numbers are going to be coming out soon.
Right.
Last February, maybe it was an anomaly, we don't know, it was down 34% about.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to see the February numbers and the trend looking ahead? Is it going to be worse, is it going to be better than we thought? And have you had any look at the preliminary February numbers?
I have not, but I will say this, you bring up an extremely important point. I think as we came into session this year, most legislators recognized the extremely difficult task, but they weren't shocked, to use your word a moment ago, they weren't shocked until you saw the January numbers. Because the January numbers really put a fear of God in all the legislators that wow, this is not getting better. In fact, it's actually getting worse. Now we come to February. And of course, as everyone knows, you're looking February over February. So when we look at last February and it's down 34%, if February numbers are down again, I would hope that sends a red siren to not just every legislator, but everybody in the state that this is as bad as we could ever imagine. And so if those February numbers are down again, number one, I don't necessarily see us getting out of here real soon. But number two, we will then almost be operating on a week-to-week basis for the funding of the state for the remainder portion of fiscal year 2010. So I don't think you can overestimate how serious it is if the February numbers are down again.
Is there a possibility of running out of money?
No, I don't think there's a possibility of running out of money for fiscal year 2010, but again, every time that we shift money from 2011 into 2010, it just makes that fiscal year 2011 hole that much more difficult. And it's already significantly difficult as it stands now. So, it wasn't my point here to come here and so much shock people today, but it was my effort to lay it on the table and just hopefully describe what it is we're actually looking at and how important it is that people understand the choices that are going to have to be made. Again, in years past, we look at the budget and we find areas we can cut. Now we're looking at the budget and realizing those areas aren't available to be cut unless you actually take some sort of legislative action changing state law to allow that to happen. I mean, that's where we are in this process.
Speaking of not getting out of here anytime soon, would you, at this point, support the legislature doing its annual normal thing and taking the week of the Masters off?
I have not talked to my friends in the House. I know there's always been concern because the Metro Atlanta spring break typically falls in line, all the counties, and I know there's always concern for those who have parents that have been down here, or those who are parents that have been down here for a month or 2 months and haven't really seen much of their kids to be able to take that week off. I can only speak for myself. I'll be here working at the Capitol, and we have not broached that subject with the House yet to determine the schedule. Being a Metro Atlanta legislator, I do have the ability to go home every night and see my kids, which I do. So, I'm not taking spring break.
If the economy is growing, I mean, economists say we're in a recovery. Have y'all considered moving more of the stimulus money forward into FY10 or FY11?
I think the only way we would move stimulus money from FY11 to FY10 is to fill a hole in fiscal year 2010 so that you don't run out of money. I don't think it would be built on the notion that fiscal year 11 is going to be so strong economically that we don't need those resources. One of the problems, of course, Georgia has, and this is very different than what we had, sorry, who would call me at a time like this? It's John Wiles. I don't know what he wants. One of the problems we have, of course, is that Georgia kind of started into this recession a little early because it's been a real estate-based recession. And you would hope that if you start early, you would come out early, but I think, in fact, we're starting early and going to come out late because you still have big issues in the commercial real estate market. You still have major banking issues to deal with. And Georgia's economy has to diversify itself instead of being so dependent on real estate and construction that we're kind of trying to find our footing in other areas. So while the rest of the nation is recovering or seems to be on the path towards recovery, I think Georgia is going to have some considerable problem as we move forward transitioning out of a construction-based economy. I got time for one more, unless there are no more.
Well, I'll throw one more out there. In years past,
It's always
generally,
dangerous.
at this point, the budget negotiations typically go behind closed doors. The appropriations committees meet and talk about what they're going to come out with and then come out and propose a budget. Given the difficulty of the state and the deep ramifications for almost every Georgian, Would you support having more of those negotiations in public, in open session? So that people can see as the process goes, how those decisions are being made?
You mean C-SPAN?
Well, it did make me think of it, that whole argument, but.
Well, you know, as we just have done this last week and we'll continue to do this week, we'll have as many meetings as humanly possible, live and available on the internet and open. You know, those type of meetings where you have leadership getting together to talk about budget proposals probably won't occur anytime soon because, again, we're looking to wait on the February numbers to really get an understanding of you know, we're all budgeting towards a target, but if that target changes with the governor changing his revenue estimate, then we have to go back to the table again and begin to rework this whole thing again. So a lot of it depends on what the governor decides to do with his revenue numbers, but we are focusing in on $1 billion in reductions.